Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portress, and I'm joined by sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
Now that I have your undivided attention, I'd like to speak to you about the concerns of sleep deprivation.
Oh, here we go. And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and Adam, you're a man when I say you are.
Well, we hadn't been there yet, so we'll keep trying, and maybe one of these days we'll get there, but by God, I can try, can't we?
Nobody punches Adam in the mouth like Adam.
No, that's true. And he deserves every bit of it, I always say. We are back, everybody, and this week we are kicking it down to the old Netflix to talk about Enola Holmes. That's right, everybody. Who knew that Sherlock Holmes had a sister? I sure shootin' didn't, but we'll get to the bottom of all of that kind of good stuff. But before we get the show started and everything, we do want to say a big giant thank you to everyone who supports us over at patreon.com/HMP. There you get the pre-show, post-show, and of course the Dinger Zone. We appreciate all of you fine folks for doing that. And you're going to have some more cool stuff coming to you in not too awful long. We've got some interesting plans going on. But I do want to say we'll do your ceremony next week because we forgot about it a little bit earlier. But Jessica Berry, we do want to say you are the newest Patreon supporter at that $5 level, which is the most popular level. And we'd like to say thank you. Thank you for helping support this show, keeping things going. The lights are on because of all of you fine folks. And the show gets out to more and more people. If you can't do that, all I'm saying is review us on iTunes, share it with your friends, tweet us out, whatever you're going to do. Let people know about the show. So one way or another, try to help this show grow bigger, and we'd like to thank all of you for that. And we'd like to thank all of you guys as well. Plug it at the top of the show because why the heck not? The Mandalorian 30 Questions is blowing up again, and that's fantastic, and that's because of you guys. We're getting some decent downloads and stuff over there. So I just want to say thank you for that right off the bat because I know a lot of those initial listens and stuff come from our hardcore HMP fans. So I want to say thank you to you fine folks for making that show outshoot even this show. So that's fantastic. Well, let's get into it, gentlemen. Here is the trailer for Enola Holmes.
Now, where to begin? My mother named me Enola, which backwards spells alone. And yet, we were always together. And it was wonderful. She was my whole world. Which leads me on to the second thing you need to know. A week ago, I awoke to find that my mother was missing, and she did not return.
I'm presently on the way to collect my brothers, Mycroft and Sherlock.
Yes, Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective, my genius brother. He will have all the answers.
Enola. Where's your hat and your gloves?
Well, I have a hat, just makes my head itch. And I have no gloves.
My God.
A wild woman brought up a wild child who will make her acceptable for society.
She seems intelligent.
There are two paths you can take, Enola. Yours, or the path others choose for you.
It is time to find my mother. The game is afoot.
If I have to stay hidden from my brothers,
I must become something unexpected. A lady.
you've progressed nicely.
Is she safe?
She's had company.
I'm Viscount Tewkesbury.
A useless boy.
You have to help me. I'm not ready to die on a train.
I'm not ready to die at all, and I wasn't going to before I met you. What are you planning, Mother?
She always had a reason for everything. Her own way of doing things. Perhaps she wants to change the world.
Perhaps it's a world that needs changing.
Come on!
Unlike most well-bred ladies, I was never taught to embroider. I was taught to watch and listen. I was taught to fight. I'm coming to find you, Mother.
You don't know how to embroider?
All right, everybody, that was the trailer for Enola Holmes, our new release here on Netflix. I don't know how this here relates to comic books, but you know what? I know somebody who might.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, Enola Holmes, what do you got for us?
Well, I've been a pretty big fan of Sherlock Holmes since about the 7th grade when I read The Hound of the Baskervilles for the first time. And you guys may be amazed to hear this, but after reading that, I actually wrote and produced a puppet show based on The Hound of the Baskervilles for my talented and gifted class. So are you guys impressed by that?
Was talented and gifted something else they called is that what they called the class? But if you're making puppet shows, I don't know if that's really. It feels like the slower class. I'm going to be honest with you.
Everybody just showed up one day and I had a bunch of puppets. And I was like, sit back because you're in for a treat.
Was it called a special class?
It was definitely special. But also you won't be surprised if anyone who's read any of my books to find out that my adaptation was called The Hamburger of the Biscuitvilles. But that's a story for another day. So the fandom,
man, talk about staying on brand.
No kidding.
So this Sherlock Holmes fandom, I started this in the 7th grade and never wavered.
Not looking back.
But the Sherlock Holmes fandom has stayed with me pretty consistently. I watched Young Sherlock Holmes on VHS. I took in both Guy Ritchie movies multiple times apiece, and I reveled in Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock. So I think it goes without saying that I've also picked up at least one issue of every Sherlock Holmes comic I've ever run across, including the ones written by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
What?
So yes, he wrote a series of Sherlock Holmes novels that were
everywhere.
Comic books. Yeah. So I thought I knew just about all one needed to know about Sherlock and his extended family. So when Enola Holmes showed up on Netflix, I thought this must be some entirely new idea with a new character that had never existed before. In light of that, can you imagine how tightly I clutched my pearls? And that's not a euphemism, by the way. When I found out there was not just one, but 3 volumes of comics featuring one Ms. Enola Holmes.
Huh.
So thus began my journey into mystery. And that illusion works on a couple of different levels in this instance. But my first discovery was that she first appeared in the Enola Holmes Mysteries, which is a young adult fiction series of detective novels by American author Nancy Springer. And Springer developed the idea for Enola Holmes alongside her editor, a guy named Michael Green. And Green initially asked her to explore the deepest, darkest London at the time of Jack the Ripper. And after some research, she realized that Sherlock Holmes was based in the same time period as Jack the Ripper. So she rejected the idea of giving Holmes a daughter, but thought the idea of a much younger sister could work. So the books found an audience, and Enola was considered good subject matter for a European comic book adaptation. And the series has been adapted in France as graphic novels by writer and artist Serena Blasco. And the first 3 volumes have subsequently been published in North America by IDW. And the first comic art is titled The Case of the Missing Marquess. And I would imagine it parallels much of the Marquise of Tewkesbury story that we see in the Netflix film. When asked about her decision to adapt the Enola Holmes stories into comics, this is what the French artist Blasco had to say, quote, "I'm a fan of Sherlock Holmes and have read all the Conan Doyle stories. I worked in a bookstore when I saw Nancy Springer's Enola Holmes novels, and my first reaction was, oh no, another version of Sherlock Holmes, and with a sister no less. But I was intrigued, so I read them and really liked them. I think Enola's a very interesting character and was ideal for graphic interpretation." Adding a nice touch to the art of Enola Holmes is the fact that Blasco painted all the panels with watercolors, giving them a nice soft and floral appearance set in stark contrast to many of the dangerous and rigid obstacles that Enola faces. When asked about this technique for the art, Blasco said, quote, "My first comic was drawn digitally, but I hated working on the monitor. So when the book was finished, I sold my big computer for a little one and a pad of paper. I'm very comfortable with ink and paper. It's more free. I can draw wherever I want, and it's better for my eyes," end quote. Blasco is also perhaps a bit different than other comic artists in as much as when she talks about her influences, she doesn't mention names like Kirby, Ditko, or Kubert, but rather Monet, Renoir, and Van Gogh. But she is French, so maybe that has something to do with it. In a review of the first comic issue, Bleeding Cool said, it's filled cover to cover with dynamic storytelling and picturesque art. Springer's work translates well to the comic book medium. There was considerate care in how this story was developed for a new medium, and Serena Blasco's artwork doesn't give the mystery away. The panels stretch in unique ways across each page, often putting heavy text in to distract readers from what could be a clue. So I confess, I haven't read the comics, but I have spent a little time looking at the art, and I can honestly say that if you like mysteries and you're looking for a good one with a female lead, you ought to check it out.
Very good. Here is the IMDb plot line for our fine little film here. When Enola Holmes, Sherlock's teen sister, discovers her mother missing, she sets off to find her, becoming a super sleuth in her own right, as she outwits her famous brother and unveils a dangerous conspiracy around a mysterious young lord. Like I said, this came out on Netflix. It stars Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, Sam Claflin. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that man's name right. I like him. And Helena Bonham Carter. Sean, let me ask you this. Because we heard a little bit from Bruce here. What's been your connection, if at all, with any Sherlock Holmes stuff over the years?
I'm more of a passing fan. When it's good, it's good. When it's not, it's not. I did not like young Sherlock Holmes when I was a kid. I thought that stained glass creature was great, but that's about it.
Early ILM kind of CGI stuff, yeah.
But for the most part, I grew up in Connecticut, and there is Gillette Castle in Connecticut, which is like one of the tours that you take when you're in school. Hey, you got to go to Gillette Castle. It's on the Connecticut River. It's this beautiful old, like, Victorian castle. And so for a very long time, I thought that someone named Gillette had created this Sherlock Holmes. And so every single time that I would hear that it like, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes, I would go, nope, Gillette did. Because I was a dumb child.
The founders of the Mach 3 razor.
I like a world where Penn Jillette wrote all the Sherlock Holmes stories.
Well, from what I have learned now, the actor played Sherlock Holmes, and bought this mansion on the Connecticut River.
Ooh, Basil Rothbone?
No, somebody Gillette.
Okay, Victor Kiam.
Yes, and so, like, that's basically my only connections to Sherlock Holmes. Like, I when it's done well, I like it. When it's not, I don't. And that's basically what there is. That first season of the BBC Sherlock Holmes is great. It's a very, very good show. It's so good, in fact, that even my kids were like, "Hey, is season 2 out yet?" Like, I mean, that's how good that show was.
Yeah, that was honestly, it was one of those things that was like, this is too good to be true about how decent and amazing this is. And like, it's a television show, but it's a television show that runs for 90 minutes. And in that great British fashion, they're like, we're going to do like 3.
Yes.
And that's
like
what you're going to get.
It was like 3 movies instead of 3 episodes.
But they're all of super high quality, and that's what, like, so I was into that. I enjoyed those. Those are very good. I think I read the first, and it was on account of those, actually, that I went out and actually read a book, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Adam read a book. I read A Study in Scarlet. It's not super long.
Ooh, don't tell your Mormon friends you read that.
I got to keep it quiet. But I like it. I mean, I like Conan Doyle's kind of writing style and everything, and to a degree, and we'll get into it. It felt like there was a bit of that kind of vibe going on with this show as well, seeing as how, at least from the one that I read, and from what I'm to understand, it's all kind of like the journals of Watson. Right.
Yes.
So it's all kind of from his perspective and everything. And so this show, I felt kind of nicely leaned into that, but with her character as opposed to, say, Watson.
Yeah.
So overall, kind of thoughts. What I mean, I knew nothing of this going into it, other than here's the name of it. Here's the two people that you knew, Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill, and that was about all I knew, kind of going in.
Well, this was Millie Bobby Brown's baby. Like, she liked the books and maybe the comics, and she decided she wanted to make this movie. She wanted to be Enola. And it was all her that got this made. And you noticed it was produced by Legendary Pictures, and that all happened while that Godzilla movie that she was in was being made. She worked out a deal with them while she was working on that. And I think that's pretty cool for her. She was 15 years old, 14 years old.
And that's what I wanted to bring up here. And like, because I, you know, obviously she's a young lady. I didn't know she was still as young as she actually is. She's only 16 right now. And I gotta say, she's fantastic for like a 16-year-old. Yes. She is acting way above her weight limit here, or age limit, really, as far as that goes. She is. We saw her. I mean, the big thing that she was in was obviously Stranger Things. That's when everybody really kind of figured out who she was, despite her being in a ton of things previous to that. But, you know, nerd culture as a whole, we discovered her there. And that role's kind of a quiet role. She doesn't really say a whole bunch. I don't know what happens in season 3. I never really got all the way through season 3.
How do you feel about Soviets at a mall?
Maybe.
Season 3 might be the best season in some ways, Adam.
Okay, I mean, okay,
yeah,
I'll go back.
Especially if you like young John Ralphio in sailor suit, it's really good.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Never put that together, but you're right.
I did do a couple of those. I saw like the first probably 2 or 3 episodes, and for whatever reason, it just kind of we got too many things to watch these days, and there's too many choices, and that's a problem.
If you wonder what it looks like if Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman were mixed together into one teenager, you get to find out too.
That's true, yeah. But so that kind of role in Stranger Things of hers was a little bit understated. We get to see more and more of her. You know, in the most recent Godzilla film, she has a fairly extended role in that, and in this movie, she's really good. I like everything that she does, and she reminds me of kind of like a young Natalie Portman in a lot of ways.
Well, that's a question I had. Let's just go ahead and jump straight to that, because I'm with you, Adam. I'm seeing how well she's doing here. And then, of course, Stranger Things is really successful. And I started wondering, for some reason, I started thinking back to when The Journey of Natty Gann came out. And I really thought Meredith Salinger was going to be a big deal. And she was a big deal in my life for a while, but her career had a trajectory. Now, she's happily married and not working as much, I think. But I was started wondering specifically, is Millie Bobby Brown going to be more of a Meredith Salinger or more of a Natalie Portman? Because, of course, Natalie Portman had some outstanding roles when she was really young, but transitioned well to an adult actor, more so, I guess, more successfully so than Meredith Salinger did.
Certainly more successful, and not for nothing, but Natalie Portman got a brain on her. Like that lady is super smart, and I don't know from nothing. I'm basing this on the roles that I've seen her in. I think Millie Bobby Brown's got a good head on her shoulders too. I think she's bright, or at least she's got enough people around her to push her in the right directions for the right projects, and even that can certainly lend a hand to all of it.
And you may or may not be aware, but Natalie Portman herself has compared Millie Bobby Brown to herself.
Get out of town. Okay, well,
yeah,
there you go, putting it together.
Unlike Natalie Portman, however, because this is one of the things I want to bring up about Millie Bobby Brown, because I am a very big fan of hers as well, and I didn't realize just how big of a fan until this movie. Is that she is not being sexualized.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And that is wonderful.
And I think part of that is probably because this is her production. I mean, she's a producer on this.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, she's other projects. She isn't either. She isn't in anything. And that is something to be commended. And I'm sure she has part credit in this. I'm sure she does.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to the people who work with her, because, Natalie Portman didn't get that. She was sexualized right out of the gate. And
yeah.
And it's so nice to see that Millie Bobby Brown is getting a chance just to act and be an actor, and that's great.
Yeah.
And I think that there is the opportunity more today than there was 20 years ago for a young actor to take control of their own career too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for all of those Stranger Things young actors on that show, that they've all done amazingly well of taking control of their own career compared to child star success stories from 20 years prior.
Yeah, I mean, outside of a couple of cases and stuff, like stars of kind of her stature right now, I don't think, and I hope I'm right, I don't think we're going to see a ton of of those real shattered child actors like we kind of used to. We used to crank those out a dime a dozen. They were like everywhere. You were in something and you were hot for a minute, and then you were just bottom of the barrel. And I think we're at a different level now, and I think we're being a lot smarter as far as like from production stuff to, actors themselves, actors and and in this case with child actors and their parents and stuff going, we need to, make demarcations in everything that we're doing to set our kids up for success. And for a good many of them, like we've always said it on this show, right now we are in the absolute golden age of child actors. They are so good.
Yeah, normally somebody like Millie Bobby Brown is like a once-a-generation phenomenon, and we've got several folks that I would say are right in. I mean, her fellow castmates on Stranger Things, of course, but then who I call the American Millie Bobby Brown, which might not be fair to compare so closely, but Sophie Lillis is like right there. I mean, I feel like they probably could be in a lot of the same roles.
Well, let's be fair here. I mean, Stranger Things has two good actors on that show, child actors, and everybody else is, fair to middling.
I think they probably have four, but I'm also.
What are you talking about? Millie Bobby Brown and Wolf Punchard or whatever his name is. Those are the only two actors on that show. Everyone else is a performer.
I can't remember the name of the actor, but the guy who was in the show on Netflix that we reviewed where Millie Bobby Brown was kind of like Carrie. I'm Not Okay With This. I think that was the name of it. The boy in that, or the young man in that, was also from Stranger Things, and we all said we were impressed with how well he performed.
Oh, you're right.
He was good.
So that's three, and then I say roll the dice. Somebody else is going to be good out of that batch. And the other good child actor is David Harbour.
David Harbour's the best 17-year-old you've ever seen. Yeah, that's right. You didn't know David Harbour was 17. That's how good he is.
I mean, technically, Winona Ryder's a child actor.
Oh, that's true. Winona Ryder's. I mean, as far as child actors go,
nobody ever talks about the toning down of Winona Ryder from season 1 to season 2 of Stranger Things, and I think that we need to do that a lot more in our society now that we have a lot less to worry about.
Yeah,
I think that she got a total pass because she was so bad in season 1.
She was on the edge of a knife constantly.
I mean, just her facial expressions when they receive some kind of award and she's up on stage. I mean, that alone tells us what the poor Duffer Brothers were dealing with.
She was as a kite, I will say, during that.
That was when the mushrooms kicked in the moment she went on stage.
All of a sudden, it's just like, oh no, here I am right now. Just act normal, and then that's what you think normal acting is. Not so hot. Hey, we've all been there, all right? I get it. So let's talk about Henry Cavill and how I want to see that man in just about everything.
Oh, Sadie Sink is good. Sadie Sink is in season 2 of Stranger Things. She's another good child actor. There we go. I found 4.
On to Cavill.
Hey, everybody. Bruce had to go way out of his way to prove a point. Yeah. Good job, Bruce.
Bear trapped on that one.
It wouldn't be Bruce without it, would it?
Yeah, Henry Cavill is he's just the best. He's so great in everything, and he's just so damn handsome.
Yeah,
that you're like, man, that is just a good looking man.
Now, this is a legitimate question. Sometime in the last, let's say, 2 years, did women turn on Henry Cavill, and I don't know about it or something?
I don't know why they would. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, because I don't know exactly what happened along the way, but I know that my wife's opinion of Henry Cavill has changed a lot since Man of Steel.
Really?
Yeah, she does not like him now and won't tell me why.
Okay, so
maybe he cheated on somebody.
I'm gonna throw out a guess. I'm gonna throw out a guess. All right, this is superficial and stupid, but I'm gonna throw out a guess. Ladies see him in the first 5 minutes of that Justice League where they had the CGI the mustache out and he looks ridiculous. He looks like he's got some sort of cleft palate surgery thing going on. Maybe that's where the ladies have seen him and they're like, for the first 5 seconds of that movie, they're just like, that's what he looks like now? No, thank you. And then they just moved on.
Oh, okay. So there's an article from July 2018 where there was some Me Too backlash thrown Henry Cavill's way. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe that's got something to do with it.
Who knows? But I'll say this: when he's on screen, he is magnetic, and
And when he's not on screen, he's making computers in his basement. He's great.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the story. And Helena Bonham Carter. We got to talk about. She's only in it for a hot minute, but I like her whenever she's in anything. She's just one of those weird, odd duck actresses that I just love.
I think this was just enough weird for her too, because when they start giving her too much weird, I don't like her as much.
Yeah,
I am glad that you brought that up, Bruce, because what I truly believe is that she goes into a project and she goes, "So how weird do you need be?"
Yes,
and they go, "Why don't you give it a 4?" And she goes,
4.
"I'm on it."
Yeah, she brought the perfect degree of atypical to this role without, she's always better when she's not working with Tim Burton, in my opinion.
I will say this though, I think I am surprised that her and Tim Burton didn't last the test of time, because you want to talk about two odd ducks that seemed perfect together. I don't know. They just your weird seems to complement each other really well. I'm surprised, it was either going to burn up instantly or stay there forever, I guess.
Honey, where's all the dry shampoo?
Don't get too clean now.
Oh, my goodness.
So, Enola Holmes is not brought up in kind of the same fashion that like Sherlock and Mycroft are. Yeah. And I don't know. Was like I said, having not known any of the source material or anything like that, I bought it well enough, and I kind of liked that it was almost this sort of secret thing that we don't really talk about with the extra sibling.
As a person who's really into Sherlock Holmes, you don't even know Mycroft exists until he's absolutely left with no other choice but to talk to Mycroft in the original stories. Sherlock Holmes, written by Conan Doyle, way back in the turn of the 19th to 20th century, by Penn Jillette. But he was, before we even had terms like autism and Asperger's, he was sort of in that mold. I mean, obviously Doyle was very observant of folks around him, and Sherlock Holmes is a person who does not share personal details. He's like a Mr. Robot of his time. That's a good term to apply to him. So he could have absolutely anything going on in his extended family, and it's believable because he is not the sort of person who can even remember that he needs to eat sometimes when he's working on a case.
And that's what I like so much about the BBC series, is that it really felt like it captured that. I mean, obviously I went in reverse order, but I read, once I read the book and everything, or one of the books, I go, oh man, they really kind of took a lot of that and really updated it to kind of modern times and whatnot. And I don't feel like we necessarily got that Sherlock in this. And let me ask you this, because I don't know the answer. Where do we figure this kind of falls in the Sherlock lore and everything? Because that's another thing I was kind of confused about.
Well, Sherlock lore is a big Sherlock lore is a big tent. So 80% of stuff that's been done with Sherlock would not be what you would call canon. Mm-hmm. However, this version of Sherlock Holmes did get a lawsuit from the Doyle estate because, Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain, but there were some stories that have not yet come into the public domain. And the basis of the lawsuit is public domain Sherlock Holmes doesn't have any emotions, but the one in this movie seems to have emotions. So he's still copyrighted.
We live in a weird, litigious world, but,
Thanks, Disney.
I don't know how. Yeah, there's a lot of this that we can point at Disney and go like, "What's going on, dudes?"
Yeah, so that's kind of one of those weird things. But where does this fit in? I mean, there's no Watson. The time that this has taken place, 1884, would be a post-Watson time. I'm just going to say that this is absolutely fanfic, but that's okay. If it's a good story, that's fine.
No, and I was always a fan of crazy what if comics and stuff like that, where you're just like, look, this isn't real or nothing like that, but here's something crazy and wild, and that's what I also loved about the Ultimate books. It's like it's the stories that but different and new enough to where it feels like you're getting something fresh.
What if Captain America was a racist?
And I would say Mycroft and the depiction of Mycroft in this movie in particular is definitely an Elseworlds Mycroft. Like, this is not a canon Sherlock Holmes Mycroft. So I think that alone is a strong argument that this is its own sandbox.
I like Lestrade showed up. I thought that was kind of a nice, fun thing that I wasn't really expecting. I was like, okay, here's this world. Okay, so we're not going to be in kind of the regular Sherlock, gang of characters, as it were. And then one of them shows up. I was like, oh, that's a lot of fun.
And, can I talk a little bit about Mycroft?
Sure.
I have a lot more thoughts about Mycroft Holmes than maybe
I figure you would be like a huge Mycroft fan just because on account of who you are. I don't know why.
There's a lot I like about Mycroft. I wouldn't call myself a fan, but the characterization I can relate to because I've felt like Mycroft in the past. And essentially, Mycroft is characterized by Doyle as more intellectually gifted than Sherlock, a better detective than Sherlock, but he's just too darn lazy to get off the couch. So maybe you can understand why during a certain time in my life, I really liked Mycroft Holmes.
He's a sandbagger.
Yeah, and it's also, there's that part of many people who think they could be creative but don't bother. That is Mycroft Holmes sometimes too. Like, boy, I could make a funnier video than this guy, but I'm not going to make a video at all because that's not what
I got better things to do. Couch.
When I finally get around to writing that book, it's going to be way better than those books these losers wrote. But yeah, there's a lot I like about Mycroft. I really always in my head canon. I don't know if it's depicted on the page as such, but I also always pictured Mycroft as being a little more fleshy. Like a little chubby. Like, I'm not saying like full blown fat guy, but always pictured him just a little pudgy because, of course, he's lazy. I mean, that's his character trait, is wasted potential, more than anything else.
I don't know why. Maybe I always thought it was. I thought this seemed like right to me. I don't know.
Well, you're probably painted by the version of Mycroft that you see in the Guy Ritchie movies. The version of Mycroft you see in Sherlock is a little closer to this one than it is in the short stories.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever got to actually read any of the ones with him.
And honestly, you guys may not know this, but I've read some Alan Moore League of Extraordinary Gentlemen stories in which Mycroft Holmes is pretty pivotal there, and he depicts him a little more honestly to Conan Doyle than what you've probably seen in other adaptations at him.
Cool.
But the idea is when Sherlock can't figure something out, he goes to Mycroft. Mycroft's too lazy to do the legwork. So Sherlock can go get all the clues, and then when he hits the wall, he can go and tell Mycroft how puzzled he is. Then Mycroft laughs at what a simpleton Sherlock is and explains it.
And then Sherlock goes out and actually does something about it.
Yeah. Mycroft isn't grabbing the old heavy riding crop and fighting against thuggies on a train.
But I like how we're seeing Enola from kind of a different angle. When Sherlock comes in, he is absolutely observant in everything, and he does have that almost crazed, minute detail eye. Walks in and is able to kind of see and decode everything that's going on. And she's not like that, and I like that she's not like that. It makes her her own character and not just Lady Holmes. You know what I mean?
She's a cryptographer. Like Sherlock Holmes is a detective. Mycroft in this is pretty much a bureaucrat, and Enola is a cryptographer. So you can imagine, she's, I think in story, did they say she's 16?
No. Well, she claims to be 20 at one point.
Yeah, she claims that, but I think that when Mycroft and Sherlock are talking, they say she's 16.
Okay.
They point that out.
Bruce, can we go back for a second?
Yeah.
Now, of course, I know what a cryptographer is because, I'm just so smart. but for people who are, might not know what a cryptographer is, would you please explain what that is?
A code breaker.
I was going to say.
Oh.
Yeah, a code breaker. And that's what she is here. I mean, she's breaking codes. Specifically, she's really good at anagrams. But you can just picture when Enola is in her 40s and 30s or 40s, and well, no, I'd say she's going to be more like her 60s. I'm trying to do quick math. We'll go back to like 50s. We'll split the difference. And World War I is raging. They could really use like the world's best cryptographer in the United Kingdom, so I can just see how this could be like really long-standing line of stories for this character.
You don't want her in a game of Boggle. I know that much.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, because this is something that I've always kind of raised an eyebrow to in story, and it's been there a lot, and there's been supposed use of this in real life. Perhaps there's, I say supposed because I don't know. But leaving, like, coded messages in, like, periodicals and newspapers and things like that. Do we live in a world where that could actually work on a consistent basis, or that you could go, I know this person probably reads this and this. I'm going to place some ad in here that I'm fairly certain that there's a chance that if they pick this up, they'll look at it, they'll read it, they'll decipher it, and be able to know all of the things. Is that something that has ever really, I feel like it might have happened at some point, but I can't foresee it happening a lot.
I think that in London in this time period, I mean, how else are you going to put out a blanket signal to somebody? I mean, the papers are it. There's no other way for mass communication. That is media, is the papers.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I guess my point is like, she's like, oh, I know she likes this. I know she likes Better Homes and Gardens, so I'm going to put something in the want ads, which I know she happens to read, and perhaps she'll be smart enough to, surely she's smart enough to decipher what I've put in there. I feel like there's a lot of gambling going on right there.
Yeah, but that's the fun of it too. I mean, it's this Holmes family. They're maybe the only family on earth where this would work, but I'm rolling with it. I think it's fun.
I will give credit. At least she put it in like 4 or 5 different papers, so she was kind of hedging bets. If she was just like, I know it's going to be this one, and only put it in the one, that would have been a problem.
I would have liked it if she just put it in, quote, the paper. Because that's the kind of story a lot of people write.
Look, the printing press is really new here, and we only got one paper.
Yeah, well, I don't know this for a fact, but I bet if you looked up how many papers were circulating in London in 1884, you're probably going to find some answer like 37 or 200 or something.
Yeah,
crazy.
I was about to say it's probably in that kind of time and stuff. There was probably like a bajillion of them, and it's like every other joker out there had some kind of press that they were throwing out and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No TV stations, so you gotta give people entertainment somehow. And if it's reading,
the broadsheets were like Victorian podcasts.
Perfect. What do you think of our little? So mom leaves town, and she's got to figure out how to get there. And I kind of like that sort of. I'm disappearing. Here's kind of your test of life, so to speak. You wake up one day, no one else is there. How do you figure out, what all goes down? And that's kind of, in a sense, part of your training, so to speak.
It seems a little extreme. Seems like
a little bit.
That's a little trial by fire right there.
What you guys have never left your kids alone and abandoned them in your houses and just said, like, hey, come and find me if you can, but you didn't even leave a note that says come and find me. You just leave and assume that they'll come and find you.
Yeah, that sounds pretty psychotic.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the edge there, I think.
Also, if you had a house like that, would you ever leave? Like, you couldn't make me leave that thing. That looks like a really spacious, nice manor that they have.
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, I think that's kind of...
Mycroft's paying the bills.
Yeah, they're kind of keeping with it. At least I like that they have money because if I remember correctly, he kind of comes from means. Am I wrong about that?
Mycroft is the one who's providing the money, but I mean, it is a gigantic English manor, so somebody somewhere had some means.
But that's fun. But she meets this young lord who's kind of trying to run away and everything. And that was a pretty fun little chase thing on the train. I don't know why. I like stupid train stuff.
Yeah.
I just do. If you're getting outside of a train and you're moving around the outside, going from like one cart to another, there's something about that I always like.
I think it all goes back to like Agatha Christie and Murder on the Orient Express and stuff. Like, trains just seem like a good place for action to take place.
I thought they were going to jump off the bridge, too, and I was a little bit disappointed when we just did a little barrel roll into the grass, and I'm like, that's all we got? I was looking for you to jump off and have a Butch Cassidy moment.
I was waiting for it to take a dark turn and like Enola survives, but the Marquis of Tewksbury hits his head on those giant rocks and he's dead, and now she's got to try to get rid of the body.
Hey, at least they were smart and gave him a haircut afterwards, and you wouldn't be able to recognize him for nothing. Oh, except he looks exactly the same, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh,
But
man.
heck of a disguise right there. It's like, take all of his hair off. But I'll tell you this, I don't want anybody cutting my hair with a knife. I mean, I know that scissors, in a sense, are two knives like that are kind of smashing up against each other, but I don't want one. Not one. Don't give me a single.
Really good descriptor of scissors, Adam.
Thank you.
I've had
You know what scissors are, right, guys? I'm not making this up.
I've had an irrational fear of getting my hair cut with a knife ever since I saw The Outsiders as a kid. Because when they disguise themselves, they use a knife to cut their hair, and it looks like it hurts.
I'll say this. I just little quick tangent. I got a haircut the other day, and it's my first haircut having to wear a mask and all that kind of good stuff. I prefer it with the mask. Hair doesn't fall around and hit your mouth, and you're not doing any of that all the time. I was just like, as stupid as all this is, I kind of like the mask wearing the haircut. Kind of keeps all the hair out of my mouth.
I'm not sure what kind of haircuts you're getting, man, because I don't usually get
These ladies are sloppy. They cut around, it's right around the bangs and stuff, and it falls right down in there. And you start doing the, your eyes are closed, and you're doing that, face looks like you're eating on a lemon, and you're just like, can't you see I'm in pain, woman? Brush some of it off, and they don't do it.
So much as one hair gets in my mouth,
but I still tip them. I still tip them because I'm a nice guy, and I can't not do it because I feel terrible if I do it. But at the same time, it's just like, I'd like to not be spitting out hair, please. Thank you.
Adam, you're just going to the wrong place. I don't know why you keep insisting on getting your hair cut from that lady that's dressed like a clown.
She comes with very good references. And you know what? I like to believe what other people believe. And so, but that's not really, for the last 25 years, I think I've gotten maybe 30 professional haircuts. So, I don't.
Have you tried nose breathing?
Yeah, but it's not that. It's like it sticks.
Not for me.
It sticks. It sticks to your lips, like the hair. Like it falls. I got big sumptuous lips, and hair sticks to it.
Oh my Lord!
I'm like, what's a weird word I could say?
That's his new nickname, Lips. How's it going, Lips? Adam Lips.
Goodbye, chili balls. Hello, Lips.
Oh man, I see your softball jersey. It just says Lips on the back.
Well, they used to call me Lips McGinty back in the day. Don't ask why.
So I read that this was filmed almost entirely a Steadicam.
I believe them.
I didn't really. I guess it was so fluid that I didn't really even notice a lot of that kind of stuff. But it's possible, and there are so many neat and cool stuff that Steadicam's great. Steadicam's been around forever. But some of the new stuff that that Area's doing with their kind of, for lack of a better word, we'll call it a Steadicam just so everybody can kind of get it, is really impressive. They're taking these giant cameras, I'm talking the big Areas, the big bad boys, and they're floating them everywhere and stuff. And it takes zero. Steadicam used to be, it's difficult, but
it weighed 40 pounds.
Now it's simple, and the stuff weighs even more, and people are just swooping them all around and stuff. They can go high and low. It's amazing what film technology has come up with in the last 5-10 years alone.
Because they got them robot arms now.
Oh yeah, and they can twist them around. They can do 360 spins right in there of himself. Good example for all that is the new Invisible Man movie. There's a couple of great kind of fall over shots and stuff that nobody else is doing out there, and I dig on that. But that wouldn't surprise me. I love her interactions with the camera. I like that. I thought that was a really good storytelling technique to just. It would be what is normally, kind of the in-between spaces in a book and everything, but we get it right to the camera. I feel like that is pretty effective.
So I got a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how you feel about the story progression, and I'll ask you some more questions about that in a minute. But when Enola Holmes gets to London and she goes into that like big studio space, and there's a bunch of women taking like judo lessons or karate lessons, did that kind of make you think about Dolomite? Because don't they have that scene in Dolomite where all the ladies are learning karate?
Yes,
all of make me think of Dolomite. Nothing in this movie weirdly made me think of Dolomite. It's weird. It's weird.
You got an all-girl kung fu group of girls, and that certainly it does me. I am on your page here, Bruce.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of this movie.
And the best part
is just a rip off of Dolomite.
But you know what Dolomite had that I'm sure Enola Holmes did not? The Chuck Norris School of Karate. Being the ones who helped actually choreograph those fights in Dolomite. So,
oh man,
you can try as you want, Enola Holmes. You've got no Chuck Norris on your side, and for that, we'll at least dock a point.
Yeah, they had to go with what's his name, John Kreese or whatever,
right?
The guy from Cobra Kai,
right? John Kreese.
I think.
Yeah. So, what did you guys think about the story progression? And I guess did you stay invested? Did it keep your attention? Were there moments where you thought like this is well made, but maybe it's not made for me? Or were you really just wrapped up in the story and the mystery?
This was a Saturday afternoon watch for me. I watched it, a couple of weeks ago, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. It did not pass the phone test, this movie.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it a bad movie. What it does though, is that, I could pay attention, half attention, and still know what's happening.
And I guess the central mystery is, where did mom go?
Right.
But I get a little bit involved in the story. I'm liking some of the characters, but I don't really care where mom went. I'm not invested in that aspect of the story, which is, I don't know if it says something about me or says something about the story, but I was just not at any point all that pulled into the mystery of the story. I'm more into the journey part of the story. Country girl going to the big city, hiding from one of her mean older brothers, wondering where her mom is. But I'm more into the journey than I am like the mystery.
Right, because and I think depending upon how you come at this property, can really affect that. Because if you come in looking for, which I think, obviously given the name, I came into it, like you said, Bruce, looking for a little bit more of that mystery, looking for something that's a bit more intriguing. And the mystery of where's mom, you're right, is not high on the list of like, ooh, I am intrigued. Where did your mother go? It's like she went someplace, she wants you to find her, and when you find her, that'll be that.
And
it kind of is that.
I'm a long time believer that any mom that would willingly ditch their kids isn't worth looking for. So maybe that kind of played into it a little bit.
Yeah. And, but I think that is the biggest problem. And I think that's what gets it to in the realm of the phone test is that the stakes aren't super high. And I think that may be, and in a world where we live in with, comic book movies and everything else, the world is always on, the knife's edge. Everyone's about to die. The world's going to explode, yada, yada, yada. With this, the stakes are almost so low that you don't even care.
And in this movie also wasn't made for dudes in their 40s. Like my daughter turns 15 here in just a couple of weeks. She loved this movie.
Oh, she's the perfect audience for this too. And like watching this, I was just like, if I was a girl of that age, I would love the crap out of this because it is that's the audience that they're shooting for, and good for them because that audience isn't served enough, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and my daughter is like super smart. I'll brag on her. She's super smart, smartest kid in her class. She's also, she lifts weights. She plays in the band. I mean, she lives a little bit of that road less traveled. So a story about a girl living a life less ordinary in Victorian England really, really appealed to her.
Your daughter does do just about a little bit of everything, doesn't she? She is one of those super well-rounded where it's just like, I got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. She's kind of all over the place.
And I think
in a good way.
One of her primary goals is just not to be typical. You know what I mean? Like she's living that life less ordinary. So I think this really, really appealed to her on that level too. Especially because with the finishing school, A couple times I would sort of pick on my daughter and say if she didn't straighten up, I was going to send her to the local Catholic school. And she told me it wouldn't last long. The first day she'd punch a nun in the nose, and that'd be the end of that. And that's kind of what we see Enola doing here when they're trying to send her to finishing school.
But I do like how I think it's always kind of a smart storytelling thing where she pushes against these things. These are not the things that she necessarily wants to have anything to do with, but at some point or another, she has to kind of, at least for momentarily, embrace those things in order to push along her narrative, her story. And I like that, to just go like, look, I know this thing that everybody wants me to do. I don't really want to do it, but let me show you that I can do it, but I'm not going to do it because I have to do it. Or because you want me to do it. I'm going to do it because I have to do it in order to, go from point A to point B.
And kind of as little interest as I have in the A mystery, like the primary mystery, where did mom go? And she's trying to find her mom. It is kind of interesting in that B story mystery that kind of creeps up on you, which is who is trying to kill the Viscount, the Marquis of Tewkesbury, so he won't go vote in Parliament or whatever. And that one does pay off kind of, a little bit better in the end, because that's a mystery you don't even know you're thinking about until you find yourself thinking about it.
Yeah, it's definitely the B one. It's the B story, but it probably needed a little bit more of a push to get it at least closer to what the A story is, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I do feel like it needed a push somewhere if they want this to really be a mystery movie, but I think they just kind of are making an action movie with a young female lead, and there's nothing wrong with that. A period piece action movie with a young female lead, that one is hard to sell in Hollywood.
Yeah, and honestly, I think when you put Millie Bobby Brown into the equation, that sells it. I mean...
she made this movie happen.
That's what I'm saying.
Gasoline in the engine that she approached the author, got the rights, then she got it produced. She got paid. She got paid to produce and also got paid to star in it. And this was planned to be a theatrical release pre-COVID. So maybe we can talk about that. Would we be feeling differently about this if it was a theatrical release?
Well, it would make $0, but.
I think it would do okay. I don't know that it would make. I don't know that it would be like top of the pops or anything.
Are you kidding me? No one is going to the movie theater to see this movie.
I'm not saying it's not gonna. I'm not saying it's gonna make. I'm not saying it's gonna be Star Wars. You know what I mean?
I'll just give
but
you
it's not
some
gonna
perspective.
Make
Millie Bobby Brown was paid $6.5 million. I think that it has a hard time covering its budget at the theater. But I think the straight to Netflix, they've said that it's already been viewed in 76 million households. Maybe this was like one of those things where bad luck turns into good luck, because this could have sequels on Netflix. This could have a couple of sequels on Netflix. I don't know. I think it's one and done theatrically, and unfairly, Millie Bobby Brown is going to get a reputation that she can't lead a movie because this one underperformed at the box office. I think things are working out in favor of the filmmakers on this one.
I think I'd agree with that. And this is something that when watching it, it did lend itself in my mind to two sequels. If not, this thing could have almost even been like kind of a Mandalorian style, like 8-episode season kind of thing. And maybe even that would have been even better, I think.
And depending, when you're 15, what you like can be very different than what you like when you're 19 or 20. So it could easily change. But right now, it sounds like Millie Bobby Brown is very passionate about the character and enthusiastic about the property. So I'd say as long as she's willing, they could probably do one of these a year for a couple of years.
Could you imagine being 16 and having that kind of power? Oh, I wouldn't. I would not.
The world would tremble.
It would. It would just go like, this is
power.
Not good. You don't want to let a 16-year-old Adam anywhere near producing Netflix properties for himself. No, thank you.
I can't remember what that guy did to me, but I'm going to get even with him for it.
We'll show you. All right, before we get to our final review here and everything, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question, and it is how this movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. I sure am glad we decided to review a period piece action movie that was shot in England for Netflix. Here's what I got. I came across someone named Christine Bergeron, who is the music clearances lady.
Ooh.
For those of you who are unaware, the clearances department is the last scam in all of movie making, because there's usually 40 or so people who work in clearances, and the rules change from show to show. Even if you're on a movie that's being produced by the same studio of the show you just worked on, different rules. And Christine Bergeron is one of the grifters of the clearances department. She has 349 credits to her resume.
Good Lord.
While you and I actually have to work for a living, Christine Bergeron is usually the last person to get to work and the first person to leave, because she's moving the goalposts on what can and can't be used on screen. God forbid they actually made a series of guidelines that anyone could use and look at and go by, something that was easily defined and wasn't like Quicksilver in your hand. But if you had that, then the 40 people who work in studio clearances wouldn't have a job anymore. And how are they supposed to pay for their Tesla SUV? But why so mad, sweet Chauncey? You don't even work in the movie business. You're in the insurance industry. Let me tell you why I'm peeved. Because in 2017, Christine Bergeron got to work on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, a movie that is so overlooked, it's almost as criminal as a clearances department on a movie. And you know who was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Sylvester Stallone. I've never worked with Sylvester Stallone. Hell, I've never even talked to the man, and I have a podcast where each week I mention him. And there you have it, HMPers and Dingalingers. This week's Stallone connection is music clearance officer Christine Bergeron. Adam and Bruce, this is the 330th episode of this bit, and still no word from Sylvester Stallone.
Hold out hope, everybody. Maybe one day. All right, everybody.
My fingers crossed.
As we all do. Well, here at Here Movie Podcast, we don't do any stars. We don't do any letter grades. That's all passe. No. We have our own patented Robin rating system. Would you like to know what's on that? Of course you would. Head on over to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the page. And why don't you join along with us, man? I got a lot of spicy memes coming up. Baby Yoda is back in form. That's all I got to tell you right there. And so if you want a meme gold mine.
Oh, man, we can't wait for those new memes.
Head on down, my man. So let's do that. Let's start with Bruce. Bruce, where does Enola Holmes fall in the Robin rating system for you?
Well, I just want to preface my thoughts with a review I read on IMDb. And it says, this is the movie I wish I had at 15. This isn't about Sherlock Holmes. It's not about solving a mystery or surprising the audience. It's about a teenage girl finding out who she is. It was charming, funny, wonderfully acted, aesthetically pleasing, and sweet. If you were a grown man criticizing it, back off. This wasn't made for you or me. This was made for 15-year-old girls, and the 15-year-old girl in me loved it. So, having said that, I'm not going to criticize this movie. It didn't hold my attention real well, but that's okay. It didn't need to. But the scenery is beautiful. I love the English countryside. I love English period pieces. It's got a little bit of that Downton Abbey aesthetic to it. I think the dialogue's incredibly well written. It's a movie about a young teen woman, starring a young teen woman, produced by that young teen woman. And if my Robin rating is in any way going to facilitate anybody with teen daughters or maybe extended family members or something, if it's going to help anybody see this that might like it, I don't want to give it a bad rating, even though it didn't hold my attention that well through to the end. So having said that, having read that review, I'm going to give this to Tim Drake with the understanding that this is a Tim Drake for people other than me and Sean and Adam here.
Yeah. Sean, what you got?
It's Tim Drake. I love it. I thought it was a very fun movie, and I love Millie Bobby Brown. What's not to love? She's great.
Yeah, that's Tim Drake's all around then. It's not perfect. I feel like whatever hopefully they'll put some sort of sequel out to this. I think that may fare even better than this once we've kind of, hey, here are the characters. We've got them all together. Now let's see them run. Let's see what we can do with all that. And I think that could lead to a lot of fun. I like the lighter tone of it. It's not like, Sherlock, which is always so super serious. And I think you're absolutely right, Bruce. This is made for a particular audience. We may not be that particular audience, But that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it. And like I said, for the most part, I really did. I liked it. I liked the idea of it, and I think that a sequel would probably do us even better. So,
and you don't need Henry Cavill for the sequels if you want to do a few. Like if he doesn't want to come back,
you do if you want to see a lot of handsome in one scene.
Yeah, but like here's the thing. I think with Holmes and Mycroft and stuff, I think that you could have so much fun with the three of them together and the interplay within them. I think that's what could really, and as much as I like her, I think they are also a piece of that puzzle that will help make that the ultimate entertainment product that they're looking for. Because I think a lot of that is going to be juggling those three characters and their interactions together. I think that's where the sequels will, if and we get those, will lie.
I could see some fun scenes of
Good God, guys, we've been talking about this for 2.5 hours. Let's go.
All right. Okay. So that is it, everybody. Check out Enola Holmes. It is currently available on Netflix right now. But hey, maybe you like some more stuff. Maybe you're a fan of other bits of media. Bruce, where might they go for some of those things?
I think you want to go check out something like Snowpiercer 30 Questions, or maybe you want to go check out The Boys 30 Questions. I mean, if you love this movie, you're going to love The Boys, so go listen to The Boys 30 Questions.
They're almost the exact same audience, which is very, very strange. Sean, what else?
I would like to refer you to the Clone Wars 30 Questions, where we had a very hard time in the middle of that season because there was nothing to talk about for 3 episodes.
What are you talking about? The Martez sisters are some of the best characters ever created and will put Dave Filoni in the Star Wars Hall of Fame forever and ever. Amen. But do check out that. And, of course, The Mandalorian, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Mandalorian 30 Questions. It is available wherever you find finer podcasts. And that's it, everybody. Again, we do want to say a big thank you to everyone who helps support the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Thank you to all you fine folks. And, of course, join us next week when we're talking The Wolverine from 2014. That's one of these ones that we've done this show for as long as we have. And for whatever weird reason, we haven't covered The Wolverine. James Mangold's The Wolverine, the first one he did, the one right before Logan. So we'll be talking about that next week. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking The Wolverine. For Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Anna Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.